The pistol shot cracked through the air like lightning, silencing the crowded saloon as Zara Kelly aimed her father's revolver at the chandelier, smoke curling from the barrel while glass rained down on the shocked patrons below. She hadn't meant to fire, not really, but Darren Walsh had put his hands where they didn't belong, and in Whispering Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1879, a woman sometimes needed to make her boundaries clear. "Next one's between your eyes, Walsh," Zara declared, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. At 22, she'd learned that the daughter of the wealthiest rancher in the county needed to establish respect, especially when her father was 3 days' ride away on business. The burly man backed away, hands raised. "Now hold on, Miss Kelly. I was just being friendly-like." "You can be friendly from across the room." Zara lowered the gun, tucking it back into the folds of her skirt where she'd sewn a special pocket. Her auburn hair, partially fallen from its pins after the commotion, framed her face in wayward curls. Sheriff Thomas pushed through the stunned onlookers. "Miss Kelly, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. Your daddy would have my badge if I locked you up." "Thank you kindly, Sheriff." Zara's green eyes sparkled with defiance. Mr. Walsh was just leaving anyway. The saloon gradually returned to its normal bustle, piano music, clinking glasses, and a constant murmur of conversation. Zara's friend Emma rushed to her side, face flushed with excitement. "Lord have mercy, Zara. One of these days, you're going to get yourself in real trouble." Zara shrugged, adjusting her lace gloves. "I've been waiting for someone worth behaving for." "Haven't found him yet." Emma's eyes widened. "What about the dance tomorrow night? The whole county will be there." She leaned in conspiratorially. "I heard Jack Mitchell is back in town." Something flickered in Zara's expression, a blend of interest and wariness. "Jack Mitchell? Thought he went to Colorado to make his fortune." "Well, he's back. Bought Old Man Peterson's cattle operation, they say." Zara turned away, pretending the news didn't affect her. But it did. Jack Mitchell had been the only boy who could match her spirit when they were younger before he'd left 3 years ago, without so much as a goodbye. "I don't care if he's bought half of Wyoming," Zara said, though her pulse quickened. "He's nothing to me." Emma smiled knowingly. "Then I suppose you won't mind if Sarah Williams dances with him all night. She's been telling everyone she set her cap for him." Zara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "She's welcome to him." The next day, Zara stood before her wardrobe, fingers trailing over the fabric of her dresses. The spring dance was the biggest social event in Whispering Creek, held in the newly constructed town hall. Everyone who was anyone would be there, including Jack Mitchell. She selected her finest dress, emerald green silk, that her father had ordered from back east. It accentuated her slender waist and complemented her auburn hair and fair skin. She wasn't dressing for Jack, she told herself. She simply wanted to look her best. Her father's housekeeper, Mrs. Hodges, helped her with the complicated buttons and her hair. "You look beautiful, Miss Zara," the older woman said, securing the last pin. "Your mama would be proud." Zara's throat tightened at the mention of her mother, who had passed away from fever when Zara was just 14. "Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. I miss her something fierce on nights like these." "She's watching over you, child. Now go on before you're late." The town hall was transformed for the occasion, oil lamps casting a warm glow, wildflowers in glass jars on every table, and a small band of musicians playing lively tunes. Zara entered on her father's arm, his impressive height and broad shoulders commanding respect, as always. "Now, Zara," Patrick Kelly said in his deep voice, "try not to shoot any chandeliers tonight. The town council would never let me hear the end of it." She smiled up at him innocently. "I make no promises, father." His weathered face crinkled with affection. "That's what worries me." Zara's eyes scanned the room, trying not to appear obvious about it. She spotted several familiar faces: Emma with her parents, the sheriff with his wife, various ranchers, and townspeople. And then she saw him. Jack Mitchell stood near the punch table, looking nothing like the boy who had left town 3 years ago. At 25, he had grown into his height, his shoulders broader, his jawline sharper. He wore a proper suit rather than the dusty clothes she remembered, though his dark brown hair still had that unruly wave to it. He was speaking with Sarah Williams, who laughed a bit too loudly at whatever he'd said, her hand resting on his arm. Something hot and uncomfortable twisted in Zara's stomach. "Ah, young Mitchell's back," her father observed. His father would be proud to see what he's made of himself. Good head for business, that boy. Zara affected disinterest. Is that so? Doubled the value of Peterson's place in just 3 months. Smart investments. The music changed to a waltz, and couples moved to the dance floor. Zara danced with the banker's son, then the doctor, then the young lawyer who had recently set up practice in town. All the while, she was acutely aware of Jack's presence, though she never looked directly at him. During a break in the dancing, Zara stood with Emma near the refreshment table. Jack was across the room, still surrounded by admirers, including the persistent Sarah Williams. He's looked your way at least a dozen times, Emma whispered. Who has? Zara asked, pretending ignorance. Emma rolled her eyes. Don't play coy. It doesn't suit you. Before Zara could respond, a hush fell over the room as the band started playing a special tune, the Ladies' Choice Dance, when women were permitted to ask men for a dance without impropriety. Several women immediately moved toward Jack, but he stepped away from the group, his eyes finding Zara's across the room. The connection was electric, and for a moment, neither moved. Sarah Williams reached him first, smiling triumphantly as she extended her hand. Jack hesitated, his gaze still locked with Zara's. Something passed between them, a challenge, perhaps. Zara lifted her chin and turned away, asking the sheriff's deputy to dance instead. From the corner of her eye, she saw Jack reluctantly take Sarah's hand. As the evening progressed, Zara became the center of attention. She danced every dance, laughed at every joke, shone like a diamond among river stones. Yet she never danced with Jack, and he never asked. You're the prettiest girl at the dance. Emma sighed as they took a moment to rest. Every man here is half in love with you. Not every man, Zara murmured, then caught herself. Not that I care. The clock struck 10, and many of the older folks and families with children began to depart. The atmosphere grew more relaxed, the music more lively. Zara was just considering making her own exit when a familiar voice spoke behind her. May I have this dance, Miss Kelly? She turned to find Jack Mitchell standing there, hand extended, eyes intent on hers. Up close, she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the slight sunburn across his nose from working outdoors. Zara should have refused. 3 years of silence deserved more than easy forgiveness. But her hand seemed to move of its own accord, sliding into his. I suppose, she said coolly. His hand at her waist was warm and sure as he led her into the dance. They moved together effortlessly, as if they'd been dancing partners for years rather than strangers reunited. You've been avoiding me, he said, his voice deeper than she remembered. I haven't given you a thought, she lied. A smile tugged at his lips. Still as direct as ever, I see. What did you expect, Jack? A warm welcome after you disappeared without a word. His expression sobered. I had my reasons. None good enough to explain to me, apparently. They turned with the music, their steps perfectly matched. All around them, other couples danced, but Zara was aware only of Jack's hand at her waist, his scent of soap and leather, the intensity of his gaze. I wrote to you, he said quietly. 6 letters. Never got a reply. Zara missed a step, confusion crossing her face. What letters? I never received anything from you. Jack's brow furrowed. I sent them to your father's ranch. First few months after I left. The music ended before Zara could respond. Jack kept hold of her hand a moment longer than necessary, then released it with reluctance. Thank you for the dance, Miss Kelly, he said formally, aware of the eyes on them. She nodded, mind racing. Mr. Mitchell. As he walked away, Zara felt a surge of anger not at Jack, but at the possibility that someone had intercepted his letters. Her father? No, he wouldn't. But who? The question haunted her throughout the remainder of the evening. When the last dance was announced, a slow, romantic waltz, Zara found herself standing alone. Most of her previous partners had departed or were engaged elsewhere. She was considering slipping out when Jack appeared again. One last dance, he asked, something vulnerable in his expression. This time, Zara didn't hesitate. As they moved together on the dance floor, she felt the walls she'd built around her heart begin to crumble. What did your letters say? She asked softly. His eyes held hers. That I was sorry for leaving the way I did. That I had to prove myself before I could come back. He stopped, then continued more quietly. That I thought about you every day. Why didn't you come find me when you returned? I heard you were being courted by the banker's son. Thought I'd missed my chance. Zara almost laughed. Richard? He's a nice man, but... She didn't finish the sentence. As the final notes of music faded, Jack didn't release her immediately. I'd like to call on you properly, Zara. With your father's permission. The warmth in his eyes made her breath catch. I'd like that, she admitted. Outside the town hall, as people dispersed into the cool spring night, Jack helped Zara into her father's carriage. Their fingers lingered together a moment longer than propriety allowed. Tomorrow, he asked. She nodded, unable to suppress her smile. Tomorrow. As the carriage pulled away, Zara looked back to see Jack standing in the glow of the lanterns, watching her go. For the first time in 3 years, her heart felt truly light. True to his word, Jack arrived at the Kelly ranch the following afternoon. Zara watched from her bedroom window as he rode up on a handsome chestnut gelding, dressed in his Sunday best despite it being a Monday. She hurried downstairs, smoothing her skirts, but forced herself to wait in the parlor rather than rushing to the door like an eager schoolgirl. She heard Mrs. Hodges greeting him, followed by her father's deep voice from his study. 20 minutes later, the longest 20 minutes of Zara's life, Mrs. Hodges escorted Jack to the parlor. He looked slightly tense but determined. Miss Kelly, he said, bowing slightly. Mr. Mitchell, she returned, offering her hand. He took it, his touch sending that same thrill through her. Your father has granted me permission to court you properly. Zara's eyebrows rose. Has he now? And what if I haven't granted my permission? A slow smile spread across Jack's face. Then I suppose I'll have to convince you. That might take considerable effort, Mr. Mitchell. I'm not easily swayed. I'm counting on it, he said, his eyes sparkling with challenge. Perhaps a ride? Your father suggested I show you the improvements I've made to the Peterson property. Mrs. Hodges chaperoned their ride, following at a discreet distance as Jack led Zara across the rolling Wyoming landscape. The Peterson Ranch, now Mitchell Ranch, bordered Kelly land to the west, sharing the same creek that gave the town its name. I've missed this, Jack said as they rode side by side, the spring sun warm on their shoulders. The open space. In Denver, everything felt confined. Is that why you came back? Zara asked. He glanced at her. Partly. The ranch came into view, the old Peterson homestead transformed. Fresh paint on the buildings, new fencing, increased cattle stock grazing in the distance. You've been busy, Zara observed. Had to make it worthy, Jack replied. Of what? His eyes met hers. Of bringing someone special here someday. Her heart fluttered traitorously, but she kept her expression neutral. Someone like Sarah Williams, perhaps? Jack laughed. Sarah's a nice girl, but no. He hesitated, then added more softly. There's only ever been one woman I wanted to bring here. The confession hung between them, almost tangible in the clear air. Zara looked away, afraid her eyes might reveal too much. I still want to know about those letters, she said. Jack's expression darkened. So do I. In the weeks that followed, Jack courted Zara with a determination that both pleased and unnerved her. He brought her wildflowers picked from the prairie, took her on picnics by the creek, and once, daringly, kissed her hand when no one was looking, his lips lingering against her skin. Zara found herself looking forward to his visits, planning her days around them. Yet the mystery of the missing letters continued to trouble her. Who would have intercepted them? And why? The answer came unexpectedly one afternoon when Zara was helping Mrs. Hodges sort through old linens in the storage room. Behind a stack of blankets, she found a small wooden box she didn't recognize. What's this? She asked, pulling it out. Mrs. Hodges glanced over, her face suddenly paling. Oh, miss. Zara opened the box before the housekeeper could stop her. Inside were letters, 6 of them addressed in Jack's familiar handwriting. All unopened. All addressed to her. You kept these from me? Zara whispered, hurt and betrayal washing over her. Mrs. Hodges wrung her hands. It was your father, miss. He was afraid you'd follow that boy to Colorado if you knew his feelings. Made me promise to keep them from you. Zara clutched the letters to her chest, anger building inside her. How could he? He thought he was protecting you. After your mother died, you're all he has. Zara stormed from the room, the letters still clutched in her hand. She found her father in his study, going over account books. How could you? She demanded, throwing the letters onto his desk. Patrick Kelly looked up, startled, then saw the letters. His expression shifted from confusion to resignation. Zara, they were mine. You had no right. He stood slowly. I did what I thought best. Mitchell was a boy with nothing to his name, chasing dreams in Colorado. I couldn't let you throw your life away. That wasn't your decision to make. I had a right to know how he felt how I felt. Her father's face softened. You're right. I was wrong to keep them from you. I was afraid of losing you too, after your mother. The anger drained from Zara, leaving only hurt. 3 years, father. We lost 3 years. He's back now, isn't he? And I've given my blessing. Because now he's successful, Zara said bitterly. Because now he meets your standards. Because now I see how he looks at you. Her father corrected gently. And how you look at him. The same way your mother used to look at me. Zara fled to her room, the unopened letters still in her hand. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal on the first one, dated just days after Jack had left Whispering Creek. As she read through each letter, tears blurred her vision. Jack had poured his heart onto those pages, his regret at leaving without saying goodbye, his determination to make something of himself, his unwavering feelings for her. The final letter spoke of his decision to return, to face her even if she had moved on. That evening, Zara rode to the Mitchell Ranch alone, propriety be damned. She found Jack mending a fence in the fading light, his sleeves rolled up, his forearms tanned from the sun. He looked up in surprise when he heard hoofbeats. Zara, what are you doing here alone? Is everything all right? She dismounted, holding out the letters. I found them. My father had them hidden. Understanding dawned on Jack's face, followed by a mixture of anger and relief. You never knew, then? No. I thought you'd just forgotten me. He dropped the fence tools and crossed to her in 3 long strides. I could never forget you. Not for a single day. And then his hands were cradling her face, and his lips were on hers. 3 years of longing poured into a single kiss. Zara melted against him, her arms wrapping around his neck as the letters fell forgotten to the ground. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jack rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since I was 17 years old. Zara smiled, tears and joy mingling. What took you so long? The summer of 1879 passed in a golden haze for Zara and Jack. They were inseparable, riding together across their adjoining properties, attending Sunday services side by side, stealing moments alone whenever they could. Patrick Kelly, seeing his daughter's happiness, made amends by inviting Jack to dinner regularly and offering advice on cattle breeding. It was his way of apologizing for the deception, though Zara had not fully forgiven him yet. Challenges arose, as they inevitably do. Sarah Williams spread rumors about Zara's reputation after losing Jack's attention. A drought threatened both ranches' cattle. And once, a group of cattle rustlers targeted the Mitchell property, leading to a confrontation where Jack was wounded though not seriously defending his land. Through it all, Zara and Jack's bond strengthened. She admired his determination and integrity. He adored her spirit and independence. Together, they faced each obstacle, emerging stronger on the other side. As autumn painted the Wyoming landscape in gold and crimson, Jack took Zara to a special spot by the creek, a small clearing where wildflowers still bloomed despite the approaching cold. Do you remember this place? He asked, helping her down from her horse. Zara looked around, recognition dawning. This is where we used to meet as children, where you taught me to skip stones, and where you pushed me into the creek when I said girls couldn't throw as far as boys, Jack added with a laugh. You deserved it. She smiled at the memory. Jack took her hands in his. I brought you here because this place holds our beginning. And I hope. He took a deep breath, then lowered himself to one knee. I hope it can hold our future too. Zara's heart seemed to stop, then race ahead. Jack. From his pocket, he produced a ring, a delicate gold band with a small diamond that caught the autumn sunlight. Zara Kelly, you've had my heart since we were children. Will you marry me? Tears welled in Zara's eyes. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to gather her in his arms, spinning her around as her laughter echoed across the creek. The engagement of Zara Kelly and Jack Mitchell became the talk of Whispering Creek. Plans were made for a spring wedding, when the land would be green again and wildflowers would carpet the prairie. Winter descended on Wyoming territory with its usual harshness, bitter cold, howling winds, and snow that transformed the landscape into an endless white sea. The Kelly and Mitchell ranches prepared for the season's isolation, stocking supplies and securing livestock. On a particularly brutal January night, as wind rattled the windows of the Kelly ranch house, a pounding came at the door. Mrs. Hodges opened it to find Jack, snow-covered and urgent. "The creek's flooding from the ice jam," he explained breathlessly. "It's threatening both our properties. I need men and equipment." Patrick Kelly mobilized immediately, sending ranch hands to help. Zara insisted on going too, despite protests from both her father and fiancé. "This will be my land too," she said firmly, already pulling on her warmest clothes. "I won't sit here while you both risk your lives." The night that followed tested them all. In freezing water up to their knees, Zara, Jack, and the ranch hands worked to break the ice jam that had formed where the creek narrowed. If it burst suddenly, the rush of water could destroy buildings, drown cattle, and even take human lives. Zara worked tirelessly alongside the men, her determination never wavering even as her fingers grew numb and her teeth chattered. Jack kept glancing at her, equal parts concerned and proud. Near dawn, with axes and poles, they finally broke through the worst of the jam. The creek began flowing normally again, the immediate danger past. Exhausted, soaked, and freezing, they returned to the Kelly ranch. As Mrs. Hodges fussed over Zara, wrapping her in blankets before the roaring fire, Jack sat beside her, his own blanket draped around his shoulders. "You're the most remarkable woman I've ever known," he said quietly. Zara smiled through her exhaustion. "Remember that when I'm being difficult." "I'm counting on difficult," he replied, taking her still cold hand in his. "For the rest of our lives." 2 days later, Zara fell ill, a fever that took hold suddenly and fiercely. The doctor was called, diagnosing pneumonia from her night in the freezing creek water. For a week, Jack barely left her side, despite the risk of contagion. He read to her when she was conscious, held cold compresses to her forehead when the fever raged, and prayed more fervently than he ever had in his life. Patrick Kelly, seeing Jack's devotion, finally understood the depth of the young man's love for his daughter. Any lingering reservations he had about their match disappeared as he watched Jack care for Zara with such tenderness. When the fever finally broke and Zara began to recover, the relief in the household was palpable. As her strength returned, plans for the wedding resumed, though the date was pushed back to allow for her full recovery. By April, the prairie was coming alive again, green shoots pushing through the soil, birds returning from their winter migrations, and Whispering Creek running clear and strong between the two ranches. Zara stood in her bedroom, Mrs. Hodges helping her with the wedding dress that had once belonged to her mother. Simple white satin with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs, it had been carefully preserved for this day. "Your mother would be so proud, Mrs. Hodges said, securing the last button. "You look just like her." Zara touched the locket around her neck, her mother's, containing a tiny portrait of her parents on their wedding day. "I wish she could be here. She is, child, in all the ways that matter." Patrick Kelly knocked gently, then entered, stopping in his tracks when he saw his daughter. "Good Lord," he whispered, his eyes misting. "You're the image of her." He crossed the room to kiss Zara's forehead. "I have something for you." From his pocket, he produced a small package. "Your mother wanted you to have this on your wedding day." Inside was a delicate blue handkerchief embroidered with Zara's initials. "Something blue," she whispered, recognizing the wedding tradition. "And this," her father continued, "is from me." He placed a deed in her hands. "The North Pasture. It connects our land to Mitchell's. My wedding gift to you both." Zara embraced her father tightly. "Thank you, Papa." The ceremony took place on the banks of Whispering Creek, at the very spot where Jack had proposed. Wildflowers formed a natural altar, and guests sat on simple wooden benches constructed for the occasion. Jack waited nervously, his best friend from childhood standing beside him as best man. When the violin began to play and everyone stood, turning to watch Zara approach on her father's arm, Jack felt his heart might burst with love. Zara, for her part, saw only Jack, the man who had waited for her, who had loved her even when mountains and misunderstandings stood between them. Their vows were simple but heartfelt, promises of love and partnership spoken against the backdrop of the land they both cherished. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Jack kissed her with such tenderness that several guests dabbed at their eyes. The celebration that followed lasted well into the evening, music and dancing, feasting and laughter. Even Sarah Williams came to offer congratulations, seemingly having made peace with the match. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the prairie, Jack led Zara away from the festivities, toward their new home, the Mitchell Ranch House, freshly painted and prepared for its new mistress. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, lifting her into his arms to carry her across the threshold. "Welcome home." Zara wrapped her arms around his neck, overcome with happiness. "I've been waiting for you, Jack Mitchell. All my life, I think I've been waiting for you." He set her down gently in the entryway of their home, his eyes reflecting all the love in his heart. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to wait again." Their kiss was a promise of passion and partnership, of challenges faced together, of a love strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Outside, the sun slipped below the horizon, stars beginning to appear in the vast Wyoming sky. Whispering Creek continued its eternal journey across the land, connecting two ranches now united by more than just geography. And in a small, perfect moment, Zara and Jack Mitchell began their life together, a love story written across the wild frontier, as enduring as the land itself. 5 years later, Zara stood on the porch of their home, watching Jack teaching their 4-year-old son Patrick how to ride his first pony. Their 2-year-old daughter Catherine clung to Zara's skirts, her dark curls and bright eyes a perfect blend of her parents. The Mitchell Kelly Ranch, as it was now known, had prospered beyond expectation. The joining of the two properties had created one of the largest and most successful operations in the territory. Jack's business acumen and Zara's determination proved to be a formidable combination. "Mama, look," Patrick called out, sitting proudly atop the gentle pony as Jack led it around the corral. "I see you, my brave boy," Zara called back, her heart full. That evening, after the children were asleep, Jack and Zara sat on the porch swing, watching the stars emerge. His arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him, they enjoyed a moment of peace in their busy lives. "Do you remember the spring dance?" Jack asked suddenly. "When I came back to town." Zara smiled at the memory. "You mean when you ignored me all night?" "I didn't ignore you. I couldn't take my eyes off you," he corrected, kissing the top of her head. "You were the prettiest girl at the dance. And you were the only one I waited for," she replied softly, turning to meet his lips with hers. Always. In the distance, Whispering Creek continued its gentle song, a melody that had accompanied their love story from the very beginning through separation and reunion, challenge and triumph, and into the beautiful life they had built together on the Wyoming frontier.